Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me this week are Ryan and Dustin Dohm, co-founders of Grow Defender. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks, David. Appreciate the time here.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for joining me. But before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Well, guys, I always like to start a little bit of background. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about yourselves and your journey to the cannabis industry. Ryan, I'll start with you. What was it that brought you to cannabis?
Yeah, so I actually started in regulated industry. So came from healthcare, worked under the FDA guidance there. From there, transitioned into cannabis for a cannabis startup based here in Pennsylvania. Raised some money and launched a business, and then kind of went down the DEA regulatory path with that. Became a federally legal cannabis grow back around 2020. And then from there, actually departed the cannabis space for a period of time and actually partnered with Dustin, my co-founder here on the podcast, on a branding and marketing agency called Novo. And then from there is actually from one of our clients with our agency is how we eventually got to Grow Defender and bringing that product to market. And so was in it for a period of time, left for a period and came back.
So why initially did you get out of it in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so I actually had a daughter who had a lot of health problems, and so had to take a break from my professional career, and a lot of things changed. And then when I decided to come back to my professional career, it didn't end up being in cannabis.
Understood. No, that's really important, man. You got to be there for family, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dustin, how about yourself? What'd you do before Grow Defender, and kind of what was your journey to launching the business?
Yeah, I would say my journey was a little different from Ryan's, but we kind of intersected at multiple paths. But I grew up in an entrepreneurial family that was a pioneer in the skateboarding industry in the 70s and a printing company. And I kind of went into the family business around 2000-ish, which was used to be the printing, and it was kind of design and marketing. And I kind of defected and started a lacrosse startup and kind of hit that hockey stick growth of the sport and social media all at one time, and grew that to be a national presence where we were custom manufacturing custom lacrosse pockets in the industry, and still always did graphic design as my trade, and started an agency. And then kind of crossed into Ryan's path for when he was at Med Device. I was kind of their global marketing and designer for their product lines. And then when he kind of went into cannabis, he brought me with him in to do all the branding and marketing for that cannabis startup in 2020. So that was my kind of entrance into cannabis and spending time doing branding and marketing and positioning in that space.
So are you guys related?
Yeah. We are. Most people call us brothers, but I'm actually Ryan's uncle.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, I mean, they have the same last name. Like, there's got to be something. It's just an incredible coincidence.
Yeah. You can just call us the Dohm brothers. It's easier.
Sounds good. So when you started Grow Defender, I saw that you had started as a result of some of the talks that you had with labs. Who were you talking to, and what were the things that they were saying where you're just like, hey, there's got to be a better way?
Yeah, so it kind of started with one of our clients with our agency. So they developed a formulation ultimately and patented the formulation of Grow Defender, and we're selling it into other markets. So we started doing some design and branding work for them, and they saw that I had a cannabis background. They're like, hey, we really believe this product could do really well in the cannabis space, grow rooms being kind of environments prone to a lot of microbials. Their product, having 70 plus peer and unpeer reviewed studies of microbial effectiveness. So they kind of pitched the idea to us, and we were like, well, we want to do some tests and make sure that it is as good as you say it is. And if it proves out, we'll want to launch our own brand for it, which ended up being Grow Defender. So we actually did a quick test with TerraSend down in Maryland, treated one of the benches in their grow facility, and then left the other benches untreated. So we treated it at room changeover when they kind of do the deep clean of the room. And then they brought in and this was during the flowering stage. So they brought the plants in, went through like the 60-ish day grow cycle. And then we retested the surface that we treated at the beginning of the grow cycle and compared it to the benches in the room that were not treated. They were treated, cleaned with a standard disinfectant 60 days prior. And when that results came back, it was something like 1,500 CFU of total yeast and mold on our bench and like 350,000 CFUs on the other benches. So it was like a 99.5% reduction of microbials on that surface. And that was our first indicator that, hey, this product, this formulation could actually perform in this space. And then from there, we launched the brand and started seeking some pilot study partners, and that's where the labs came in. So we developed a relationship with a lab out of Rhode Island. One of the employees there actually, we had sent a sample of our product to them like 9 months prior. And one of the employees there saw it sitting on the shelf and decided, hey, I'm going to take this home. My air conditioner at home always has mold. And so she did. She treated the air conditioner at her home. 6 months later, she reaches out to us and says, hey, how do I buy this Grow Defender product? And we were like, wait, who are you again? She, oh, you sent this sample to our lab like 9 months ago. And I treated my air conditioners and haven't had any mold since. How do I get more of it? And we were like, well, we're actually looking for some help penetrating the space. You probably know of some grows that have mold issues if you're doing their total yeast and mold count testing. She's like, I do. And that's kind of where we went into doing some pilot studies, getting some real data to prove the efficacy of the product in the space. And that occurred most of 2024. And then we got some really good data, average of a 90% reduction in microbials in the air, surface, and water. Flour at the end of this was proving to have a lot less mold on it. So helping folks pass total yeast and mold testing and doing less remediation as a result of it. And so then at the beginning of this year is when we decided we had the data and the confidence we wanted to actually formally bring the product to market. And,
is that a difficult conversation to have with potential partners and a new product? Just like, hey, heard you have moldy weed.
Yeah.
We could help you out though.
Yeah, it was a very hard conversation to kind of broach, just because our first entry into the market, we were trying to go direct to cultivator and people that have issues or SOPs already in place. It's really hard to get, growers of all different, shapes, sizes, and backgrounds to try to bring a new product to market, especially when there's a lot of snake oil products in the market. So it was an extremely hard conversation to have. And that's kind of why pivoting to labs and, when the lady that gave us a call, we're like, oh, so who has the problem? We might have a solution. And she was kind of in this kind of vicious circle of where they would do testing and know people had a problem, but they did not have a solution. And so kind of she was as excited as we were to kind of start opening some doors.
Dustin, what are some of those snake oil products on the market? And, sort of, it is an industry where people are sort of set in their ways. How do you get somebody to open their eyes to a new potential solution and give it a shot?
Yeah, I think it goes back to disinfectants, right? There's a lot of products that do disinfect on the market, which are great products, but I think it's reformulating people's mindset and what is a disinfectant versus an antimicrobial. You could look at an antimicrobial and say, well, it's a supercharged disinfectant. Most disinfectants are a one-time kill. So if there's other microbials in the air or on the surface, or they're opening up a door, that stuff is being those surfaces are being recontaminated immediately. So I think that's where our education process has been, is really getting with people and understanding, hey, you're already using a disinfectant. Let's just look at your facility, what the layout looks like, and let's look at how we use and introduce an antimicrobial into that space. And Ryan, you might have more comments.
Yeah. I think just to kind of piggyback that is, there are products on the market that are being sold that kind of make claims that would require them to be EPA registered, and they're not. So, we're fully EPA registered. That's our regulatory body, and we meet those requirements. But there are products being sold that make certain claims that you technically can't make unless you're registered with the EPA.
How can people make sure that they're using a product that's EPA registered?
So one of the easiest things to do is any product that's regulated by the EPA and registered with them has an EPA number on the label. So if you look at our products, our registration number is on there. You can also, and any of these people that are making, kind of long-term kill claims, ours is a 90-day kill. As far as we know, we're the only product available that's approved by the EPA and recognized by the EPA that it's 90 days effective. But if they don't have the number on the label, you can always look up, you can Google EPA product search, and you could search the brand on there to see if it comes up. Those are kind of the two easiest ways.
Is it true that a lot of the failed testing in the industry right now comes down to bad disinfectants?
So that's a great question. And I think we're looking at it from the standpoint of what are all the possibilities that could be driving this problem. And it comes down to contamination. These facilities are getting contaminated. And the mindset of using a single one-time kill product and expect your facility to stay, microbial free the entire growth cycle is just an expectation that's not feasible. So most facilities are doing, as a part of their IPM program, they're doing a deep clean at room changeover. But the problem is by the next day, microbials are starting to propagate in that room again. And they're coming in because, other rooms in the facility are contaminated and the air handling system's bringing them in. The water's growing biofilm, and then they're feeding their plants microbials, things like that. So the way we like to look at our product and how it's, the differentiator of it is when you treat your room at room changeover, it is protecting it the entire growth cycle. It's continuous kill. So while they're sleeping at night, while, nobody's in the facility, it's continuing to kill microbials. And that's really the big difference. And the data that we have shows that, when you use a product like that, it reduces the microbial load of the room significantly.
Well, I guess I was surprised that how many, like 20% of crops harvested are still failing testing for mold. That still seems astonishingly high, especially in an industry with such thin margins.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that number, and that is derived from several conversations that we've had with different labs. If you look at it from a national data standpoint, it's only like 2 or 3%. But if you actually dig into that a little more, there are some states, such as Florida, where people are sending product off for like a pre-test. And we've heard numbers of 80% of those are failing, but they don't get logged because it's a pre-test. So then they either remediate, they make some changes to the product in some form or fashion to get it to pass. So when they resend it, they resend it after it's been treated of some sort. And, then they're getting a higher pass rate. So we're looking at it as, we're stepping back, zooming out a little bit and not looking at it from the actual data being submitted by states. It's including a lot of the retests. So the initial failures that aren't included in those numbers.
Okay. You know what, Dustin, since you guys have been working so closely with these labs, what's been the feedback from the lab point of view? You know, I know that there are a lot of skeptics out there that when it comes to mold prevention, you know, people have concerns over changing the plant and exposing the plant to various chemicals, stuff like that. You know, what have you heard from the lab side of things, and what have you also heard from growers?
Yeah, from the lab side, you know, it comes down to, and kind of going back to our last point with data, right? There's a massive issue now with lab shopping, and it's who is operating, you know, authentically and actually trying to protect plants, people, and people's profits. So it goes back to kind of the clean data, but just kind of understanding what the lab's vision, and they're trying to build a better relationship with their customer base, right? There's more labs coming online, and so some of these labs are losing market share. Some of them are not even testing flower anymore, right? They're just you know, testing other products downstream. So I think you know, that's kind of, the labs are excited to have a solution to recommend to their cultivators, because it really is it's a public health issue now, right? It's understanding, you know, and from a worker standpoint, I think Massachusetts had, you know, an issue in their state, but it's presenting environments that are going to be healthy for all different people, from the workers to the people consuming the product, and then also trying to protect those profits, right? Remediation is expensive, and there's all different forms of remediation. And Ryan and I surely don't claim that we're the ultimate solution. We're looking at the front end. What can you do at the front end of this process? And these facilities that we're seeing, if it's not a ground up build where you can control that microbial load from the beginning, some of these places are building out a old warehouse, right? And you're dealing with microbials that you don't even know exist. And how many of these people that are getting funding or looking at site planning are looking at microbial contamination in facilities before they even do a build out, right? So it's just working with consultants and labs and cultivators, and we've been more on a path the last 6 months to a year, is just educating and building relationships and trust in the industry, and just, you know, looking at it from all different angles.
Have you guys run into that crowd yet? The moldy weed isn't bad crowd?
I've seen them on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
but I haven't personally had any conversations with them. And you know, I just wanted to mention one thing off of what Dustin said there, and you know, remediation is a solution, right? After you already identify that you have a problem, and we're looking at Grow Defender as a solution for people to help prevent that. And you know, some of the trade shows this year, there's been a lot of conversation around remediation and its effectiveness and what it does to the product and things like that. And there was little to no discussion around what people are doing to prevent microbials, so they don't ultimately have to do remediation or things like that. So we're really just trying to focus on, hey, consider an antimicrobial product like Grow Defender in your IPM to help prevent these issues in the first place, rather than being reactive. Be a little more proactive.
Well, given the history with this podcast, I would just say brace for that ire. No, there are a lot of hot takes out there when it comes to doing anything other than growing the plant and selling it.
Yeah. And one thing I'd mention there is we're not spraying on plant, right? We're spraying the surfaces in the room. We're treating the water systems. Outside of the U.S., we can spray on plant. We have tons of studies on biotoxicity and cytotoxicity that shows it's not hazardous to cell formulation and to humans. Ryan and I were, you know, there's light PPE requirements in the room. We've had a lot of cultivators come back to us and say, wow, I can tell this is safer just because the smell to their nose, it's not as pungent. You can have light goggles and face masks. So that's one thing that we're not doing. And one of the smoking guns that we saw was treating water systems, and people not even understanding. You know, we've seen all kinds of water systems, rudimentary to advanced. and that that biofilm is building up, and some of them were treating their plants with moldy water. You don't know what's coming in off the street from facilities. And so we saw, not spraying on plant really puts people at ease. There is some people outside of the U.S. that are interested in, spraying on plant and looking at what does it do at the root level, whether it's root dunking or soaking soil. We know there are beneficial microbials, but we would love to dig into that world a little bit more.
So what is Grow Defender? I understand that it's probably patented and proprietary, but what can you tell us about what it's made of?
Yeah, so it's a quaternary compound, and ultimately what it does is it creates a covalent bond on the surface, and that's what allows it to be effective for 90 days. So it's negatively charged and it's attracting microbials. So it's a mechanical kill, not a chemical kill. And so it attracts microbials to the surface and essentially deactivates and kills them. It's an ammonium chloride. There's no secrets to it. It's this type of product has been around for a long time. It's being sold and used in other markets. We're bringing it to cannabis as another more effective option to your IPM program when compared to a standard disinfectant.
Yeah, you had mentioned that it was being sold into other markets. What are some of the other markets that are currently using it?
Yeah, so public transportation, in healthcare, it's been used on the NASA space station to prevent biofilm, and then other agriculture markets outside of the U.S. So with the EPA, we're not allowed in the United States, like Dustin said, to spray on plant. We'd have to partner with a university and do some additional studies for that. But outside the U.S., there are other markets that are spraying it on, like oranges, for example, and it's really preventing, decay while it's on a boat for a couple of weeks, for example. So it's effective in protecting fruits in transit.
I mean, if it can tackle mass transportation and cruise ships, I think that's really the worst of the worst when it comes to to ugly situations.
Yeah.
That's true.
So are there any issues, like how it works by forming a covalent bond? Any issues with covalent bonds? And then, I mean, does this mean that people don't have to clean and sanitize as often?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The way we look at it is effective for 90 days. And, when what we recommend typically for a grow room is to do it at every room changeover. So it's kind of a part of that process. But like other common areas, other packaging rooms, drying rooms, for example, every 90 days is sufficient. And from like a spot cleaning standpoint, we have a cleaner that works with our formulation really well. Some cleaners will actually deactivate the covalent bond. So when we're offering our antimicrobial, it's important to use our cleaner so they can spot clean with our cleaner during that 90 days. But yeah, ultimately it's reducing the amount of sanitizing facilities have to do. We've been in facilities where there's a handful of people that every piece of downtime they have during the day, they're walking around with isopropyl alcohol and rubbing things down just as a protocol to try to reduce microbials. And with this type of product, you really don't have to do that. It's, once you treat an area, it's effective for 90 days and you don't have to, wipe it down every day or, so looking at it from a quarterly basis, if they have part of their IPM is a quarterly cleaning of kind of some of the other product contact rooms, it can be part of that quarterly cleaning. The product is also food contact safe, so we're approved as that. So treating, the surfaces that they're packaging on and all those types of things our product works well with.
It also you can treat the clothing and textiles, which is a nice differentiator, and also like utensils, right? We did some testing with this product on the HPLVD viroid, and we have a hunch that sometimes it's probably being transmitted with trimming tools. So let's just say similar to like a barbasol or something, right? That barbers use for their trimmers. You could do the same thing. You could treat these with just spraying them, or you could let them soak, regardless. But there's definitely other usages that you might not think about, or in a facility.
Dustin, are you currently pursuing partnerships with universities to try and use the product?
We're not actively pursuing that right now. We brought the product to market at the beginning of this year, and went to 2 shows. We went to MJ Unpacked in Atlantic City, and just started building relationships with people and that we met there, and having great conversations, sitting in panels, and just kind of listening and just building relationships. Right, we're in that trust building phase of the product. We want to do this the right way. So having conversations with consultants and other ancillary products that are excited and are already talking to the same people that we're talking to. And then we just got back from CanMed in Puerto Rico. So just that was kind of our first 2, glimpses of bringing the product to market, and talking to a lot of the leaders that have been, in this a little bit longer than we have, and understanding who's the movers and shakers, where's the problems, and really just getting that confidence before we start going down paths that you're discussing.
Okay. Ryan, as part of building that trust, how have things gone? Like, are you still working with those partners that you were working with on the pilots? What is some of the feedback that you've been getting from the industry in terms of, building that trust, and then, spreading via word of mouth?
Yeah, so we are still working with them. We started with pilot studies, and pilot studies turned into customers. We're one of the things that we kind of make sure we do is, when we're onboarding a new customers, is we get their lab involved, because it's important to us that they see the difference between what our product is doing and compared to what they were doing previously. So a lot of times when we engage with a new customers, it typically starts with a pilot. They will pilot our product. Their lab will come in, do a swab, at the beginning of the grow cycle, for example. And then we did 30 and 60, 90-day data points. So for 30 and 60-day data points, and to show them like, hey, this is how clean your facility is staying, and you haven't had to clean it since room changeover. And so we tested the air, the water coming out of the drip lines, and swabbed surfaces. And that's what we recommend when we onboard a new customer is they have to implement it across their whole facility to get the most out of it. And that's treating their HVAC filters, their HEPA filters. Before they put a new filter in, just spray it with an atomizer, with our antimicrobial, kind of supercharges that filter. And then all the in and outlets of their HVAC system, all the surfaces in the room, and then flushing our product into their water lines after they clean it, run an acid cleaner, for example, and then flush the product through, hold it in there for 20 minutes. That will protect it from building biofilm through the grow cycle, and really preventing them from feeding their plants microbials. And if they implement that, they do a pilot study, their lab sees the data, they see the data. It's a pretty easy conversion to becoming a long-term customer.
And this is any lab, right? Like the lab that they're already using. It's not like, they're using a hand-picked lab that's,
No, yeah, their existing lab.
Okay. So I have to imagine that the ROI is pretty immediate when you're talking about rework and potentially other things that you would need to do for remediation. What kind of ROI are people looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every facility is different. Obviously, the bigger the facility, the more ROI they can see. Our product is, in general, more expensive than a disinfectant. But if
it lasts longer.
Exactly. Well, that's the justification for it. They're using less product throughout the year because they're cleaning less, and they're having to remediate less. For example, more product passing. If you quantify all that, we don't have a huge data set to be able to do that at this point in time and give you some really good numbers on it. But it's substantial because people are losing, some of the facilities we're working with, they're newer facilities, and their first 3 harvests, none of it passed total yeast and mold testing. And then when they started implementing our product, they started getting passing products. So, from an investor standpoint, if I invested in a new grow facility and the first 3 lots did not pass and either unsaleable or you have to do some serious treatment to them, I'd be looking at any possibility to change that and get some passing product. And that's where, we've really found, people accepting our product when they've tried other things and they just can't find something that works the way they want it to, and they do a pilot study and see the results firsthand.
So how quickly can you turn it around where if somebody decides they want to bring Grow Defender in-house, how quickly can they be up and running and treating their facility?
Very quick. I mean, we ship in a couple days. Typically in the beginning, though, we get a layout of their facility. And as a part of kind of onboarding them, we write the SOP of how they would implement our product in their specific facility. And we actually provide estimations on how much product they would use across the whole year. Like I said before, it's important to us that they implement this facility wide and not just in their flowering room, for example, because microbials via the HVAC system are moving through that facility in its entirety. So for it to be as effective as it can, it's the whole facility needs treated. So the only piece kind of needed from an equipment standpoint to work with our antimicrobial is an atomizer. So that's how it is applied. It's not scrubbed on or anything like that. It's atomized, so it's a fine layer of product on the surfaces that they're treating. So outside of that, it plugs into an existing IPM program in addition to their disinfectant or can replace it.
How long does it take to treat a facility?
That's a great question. So if you have like a 20 by 40, for example, flowering room, you can treat that in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Walls, floors, benches, filters. With a standard we offer a backpack atomizer that we know works really well with our product. Most atomizers work. It just has to be in that 20 to 50 micron spray droplet specification. But you can move pretty quick.
What kind of training does each client undergo? And then you can write the SOPs, but like, how do you make sure that they adhere to them?
Yeah, that's a tough one. We've ran into that issue before. So now basically when we're onboarding a new customer, we send like a 1-sheeter with the shipment that really outlines how to use the product. And, we outline that on our website and when we're on a phone call with them as well, but we send it with the actual product as well. So when they're opening, whether it's a 5-gallon bucket of our antimicrobial or a gallon jug, whatever it is, they're getting that document and it's kind of refreshing them on how to do it, because we ran into the issue where people were trying to use our product for something that it's not used for. For example, you get sticky residue on your trimmers. They were trying to use our antimicrobial to clean the residue off the trimmers. And we're like, this isn't like an IPA where it's, chemical based and will just pull anything off. It's 99% water. So it's not going to do that. It's designed to be treated or put on clean surfaces. Our antimicrobial is not a cleaner. It's designed to be put on clean surfaces. So, surfaces need to be cleaned first to get that good covalent bond that you need for it to work the right way.
Okay. Is there anything that can be introduced into the room or the atmosphere that would render it would make it not work as expected?
Outside of using certain surface cleaners, like I said, they can deactivate the bond. I forget the science side terminology of that, but yeah, so that's, using like a simple green to scrub a surface that we treated with our antimicrobial could remove it. And then it's not protected. So that's why we recommend using our cleaner because it's not going to remove that bond. But outside of that, I mean, there's nothing they can put in the air, for example, that would render it ineffective.
Okay. And I know that you had mentioned that there's some light PPE that maintenance personnel or workers should be wearing. Are there any concerns over long-term exposure to it?
No, so we have a 0 hour reentry interval. So some of these disinfectants are multi-hour, like after you treat a room, because it's so chemically heavy, you can't go in there for certain periods of times, or you have to wear a respirator, things like that. Ours is 99% water. There's no known long-term effects. And just, protective eyewear is when you're using an atomizer, it can, spray it in your face if you're not careful. So protecting your eyes, and then you just don't want to be breathing in any foreign material at all. So wearing like an N95 mask as well, and that's kind of all on our SDS.
That's fair. And there's just a lot more of those out there these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Dustin, how does your work in cannabis now compare to, when you were in sporting goods or other industries, how is your day-to-day different than some of the other markets you've been in?
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I think when you're forging an industry similar, like I did in the lacrosse market, it's not, these markets aren't big as some of the other mainstream markets, right? Cannabis is not as big as agriculture as a whole, so it's really about the relationships. And what I noticed in the lacrosse market in the early days, it was very white collar and everybody was trying to kind of keep their marbles on the table. I think the difference in cannabis is just everybody's been super warm, right? And it doesn't matter what table that we were sitting at, that people are like, wow, we really need more people like you guys that are passionate and driven and are going to see this thing through. But also when they hear more about the product, they are just interested in plugging us in and helping us out, right? And when you're trying to just get traction in any industry, A, you can't quit. Most people quit before anything grabs a hold, but B, you have to have a good product, and then it's really just us as messengers to connect dots. So it's doing business development and connecting dots and having conversations with people and until you get more opportunity. And I think that's true for any industry, but some industries I think are a little bit more trying to keep people on the outskirts, and you got to earn your way in, but we haven't had that as much in cannabis. I think we've been welcomed with open arms, which has been exciting and refreshing.
No, I definitely like that about the cannabis industry, is that while there is the competitive side, all of the stakeholders want it to succeed. It's not that's not something you feel everywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the market's consolidated, right? A lot of markets have consolidated post-COVID, and I think the bad actors are getting pushed to the side, and people that actually know how to balance a P&L and have good business practices are going to rise to the top. And it gives the industry as a whole a chance to reground itself and prepare for longevity. And so that's, I think, a key factor in this market.
How do you approach that? When you mentioned earlier some of the snake oil that's out there on the industry, when you're at these shows and you pass these booths, how do you walk past and not just be like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that as much because we haven't only been to 2 shows, and obviously we've only been in the market since January, so I don't have products by name that I would name drop, but it's we hear enough from the conversations we're having.
Okay. Ryan, what's it like? You were on the cultivation side prior, right?
So yeah, we became an approved DEA facility to grow federally legal cannabis.
Okay. What's it like being on the other side, being on the ancillary side of the business?
Yeah, it's I that's a great question. Never really thought about that, I guess. But um, I like it because we're interacting with many different grows, many different consultants, many different labs. We're talking to and hearing people's stories and hearing their problems and in a wide array, of grows. And I like that because, you're just getting exposed to, a lot of different types of facilities. And, we visited a lot of these facilities when we were doing the pilot studies in 2024. We were on site at those facilities and seeing the different technologies people were using, how sophisticated some are and how rudimentary others are. And, they're all just, out there trying to make it and produce a product that sells on the market. So it's been fun just kind of seeing the spectrum of grows out there, rather than just one specific grow. I think that's probably the part I've enjoyed the most.
One point I wanted to clarify. So when you say it was like a DEA approved facility growing federally legal product, what do you mean by that? How is that different than, like state approved?
Yeah. So prior to 2020, the University of Mississippi was the only entity legally able to grow cannabis for federal research,
Mm.
and research institutions. The federal government hasn't recognized the state programs as that the DEA could acquire cannabis for research. So they purchased it all from the University of Mississippi, and then in right around 2020, they granted a handful of licenses to, you had to meet a bunch of different requirements. But yeah, they granted to a handful of other facilities outside of the University of Mississippi that could grow and sell to the DEA.
No, that's a cool part of the business. I don't think many people know about that.
Yeah, no, there's not many people that know. I mean, it's a very niche market. But when you have the right licenses, you can import and export Schedule One drugs with the DEA, and there's a handful of facilities that can do that.
Well, I know that nobody can really predict anything in this industry, but given the landscape, the current regulatory landscape, what are your expectations for any sort of legalization or rescheduling movement, and how might that impact your business?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of talks around rescheduling it, and these same talks have come up several other times. They seem to always kind of stall out. I think we all would agree that it being considered a Schedule One is overkill. I think descheduling is makes the most sense. But I think one of the concerns that I have with the existing programs, so some states, have medical and some states have rec, and medical and rec. For example, New York, if you are buying from a medical grow, they have total yeast and mold count thresholds that they have to abide by. But if you're buying product that was grown in a rec facility, they don't have that. So, it's kind of willy-nilly. You don't know what you're getting because it's not held to the same standard. So I think whatever happens, and one of the primary themes we saw from some of the shows this year is just cohesive regulatory frameworks for everyone. Like as you probably know, some states are 100,000 CFUs of total yeast and mold is acceptable. Some states it's 10,000. Some states it's 1,000. So I think there should be one overarching regulatory framework that lays it out for all the states would be ideal. Because like we heard also, when you're selling into this space, because every state's medical and rec program is different, it's like you're selling to 35 different markets. It's not like you're selling to one cohesive market. For us, with ancillary products like ours, we're dealing with different requirements from every state, and it comes down to even the types of products they can use in their grows. different solutions that they can use. There's, some states are different than others. So I think overall having a clear regulatory framework for all states that have a program would be ideal.
That's one thing that I just never understood. And when we reach out to regulators to ask them why it's different state to state, we rarely get a better answer than, well, just because. It's how we do it. We're like, that's unacceptable. And they're like, well, that's how we do it. Is there, given the various regulatory landscape, Dustin, does Grow Defender, can it be used in every U.S. market?
Yes, it can.
Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like a really exciting product. And I mean, it sounds like you guys have been doing a lot of things ever since you really introduced it to the market. What are you guys expecting next? What should the Cannabis Equipment News audience expect from Grow Defender, through the rest of this year and going forward? Ryan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so we have, we do have some plans to expand our product line, some just additional products to kind of pad out our offering through Grow Defender. But yeah, I mean, we're focused on really building relationships with folks in the space who have a good relationship with the cultivators. We've kind of found that as our path to credibility and trust is if we can win the consultants and the people who have been in the space for many more years than us. Once they see how effective our product is, they're quick to recommend it to people, and that's kind of the path we've taken. So the more consultants and labs and people who are looking to have a solution to be able to offer to their grow clients or their grow partners to really bolster their IPM program. That's who we're targeting and who we want to rub elbows with. Dustin, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd just say, if people have a problem, right, and there's immediate need, Ryan and I will, if it's reasonable, we'll fly or drive anywhere to walk them through the process and build that relationship and get our hands dirty. We saw that was effective in Rhode Island and really starting to bubble out from there. Obviously, we're based in Pennsylvania, so it'd be nice to get some people in Pennsylvania, Maryland, that it's not an 8-hour drive for us to build some relationships. But that's kind of just the stage that we're at.
I was going to say, what's unreasonable? Like Orlando? I'm just trying to think of the airports I don't care to go to.
No, we're building some relationships in Florida, right? There's people that are bringing in cultivators from other states that are dry, and you get into a facility where, or a state that has more humidity, that's going to propagate, more microbials. And we're starting to talk to people that have greenhouses and really understanding if they're fogging greenhouses, how could this be utilized? So we're just continuing the conversation with more people, and every situation is unique, right? I don't think we've been in one that's been exact. So it's still a learning curve for us and understanding how to help people have another, tool in their tool belt to fight this fight and to try to stay profitable and stay in business and build longevity for the industry.
No, I thought of that as soon as I said Orlando. I'm like, oh, actually, I bet that's a really good market for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you guys, I really appreciate you taking the time. Before we get out of here, is there anything else that we might have left out, or anything in particular that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience knows either about yourselves or your business? Dustin, I'll start with you.
No, not anything that comes to mind. I think we kind of hit all the bases, right? It's really just understanding of building relationships. I think that's what comes down to me. I think I'm more of a biz dev and networking guy at heart. Obviously, we came from the marketing and branding space, but this is comparable, right? If you want to really anchor your brand and you're a cannabis brand and you want to be known for something, and that's you look at all the standards of regulatory. This is what we do is another thing that just bolsters brand, that people think of you and really drives home that you have a clean product and you guys are known for having a clean product. And I think building a network of things in your SOP that really kind of back your brand is important.
From a business development standpoint, where are you having the most success right now? Is it trade shows? Is it social media? Is it direct outreach?
I would say LinkedIn and shows, right? We didn't really know what to expect going into the first 2 shows. Some of those relationships were built prior to the show, and really just seeing, if people are open to hopping on and having a conversation and giving you an opportunity, right? And Ryan and I were willing to go do trials to put the data in front of it, and don't take our word for it. Let anybody that has a good product, you can spend years building a marketing campaign for something, but if you have a good product, it speaks for itself, and that's kind of what we're building our foundation on.
Ryan, anything else that we might have left out, or anything that you want to make sure the audience knows about yourself or Grow Defender?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing is understanding the difference between a disinfectant and an antimicrobial, and just knowing that a disinfectant is not a preventative tool. It's a killing tool, and it's a one-time kill. And the difference between that and an antimicrobial product like ours is not just a kill tool, but it's a preventative tool. So if people, are really looking to bolster their preventative piece of their IPM program, using a antimicrobial like ours is a good starting point, and it's cost effective. So I guess that would be my message.
For people looking for more information, where's a good spot to reach out?
Our website, growdefender.com, would be best.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys again for taking the time. I really do appreciate it, and I hope we get a chance to do it again soon. Hey, if anything, maybe we'll see you at MJ BizCon.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, appreciate your time, David. Thanks for having us on the show.
Thanks, David.
Right. Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, maybe make fun of me stuttering all over myself, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast, perhaps with some sort of tools or maybe some sort of training that I could do to fix my broken mouth. All right. Well, for Ryan and Dustin Dohm, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we will see you next week.
Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.